Welcome back to another exciting week of Superman Comic a Day. This week we'll be covering Superman number 4 because it's 4 new stories. And because these videos would be very long if I covered each 4 of these new stories, I will just be covering 1 story a day, which will take up the amount of time I have to talk about Superman comics this week. So let's get into what I think is the best story in this comic, and one of my favorites so far, Superman versus Luthor. And if you remember the last episode where I talked about Luthor, the reason I enjoy this issue is because of Luthor. Luthor actually makes a great challenge, unlike the Mob. So right away, the comic starts off with buildings collapsing. There is an earthquake in Metropolis, which is usually meant to be on the East Coast, so that seems highly unlikely. Superman goes off to save a bunch of people, which he does. Hey, he's saving people! Love it when he does that, instead of, just kind of being around and letting people die like he has been in the Golden Age so far. This is actually kind of funny because it's only a 14-page comic and you think like a massive earthquake would be a thing he would have to deal with for a long time. But no, it's only about a page and a half, maybe a page. Back at the Daily Planet, and yes, the Daily Planet. This is the first story in Superman comics to refer to the newspaper he works for as the Daily Planet. It is no longer the Daily Star, which was a Toronto-based newspaper where Joe Shuster used to be from, and was a big influence on Shuster's version of Metropolis. Toronto was more the city it was based on, even though we always kind of assume it's Cleveland. But the skyline was meant to be Toronto. So back at the Daily Planet, George Taylor, who's still there, explains to Clark that a Professor Martinson has invented some sort of earthquake machine, and that's probably the best place to start off. So Clark goes over to Professor Martinson's, who invites him in and is willing to give him an interview about his earthquake machine. But as soon as Clark sits down, he hits Clark over the head with a wrench. He checks his vital signs and Clark's heart has stopped. Apparently Superman has the power to stop his heart. Something that might come up again, but I doubt it will anytime soon. What an ability for him to have. I don't really understand why. Other than it's a cool thing to do. And he throws Clark out the window to make his death look like a suicide. I don't know, I feel like the cops would have a lot of questions about this. But Clark, being Superman, Superman, bright blue costume, red cape, Superman, catches himself on a windowsill and starts climbing back up. This man who claimed to be Professor Martinson is not actually Professor Martinson. He is a henchman for Luthor. Luthor is talking to him through some sort of TV communication device that's in a cabinet. With it, he's able to see Superman is climbing on the outside. He doesn't question why Superman happens to be exactly where they left Clark Kent to die, and Clark Kent didn't die. Luthor is not as smart as he claims to be. Well, he hasn't actually claimed to be all that smart so far, but he's been doing better than the Ultra-Humanite. So one of Luthor's aircrafts shoots a bomb at Superman, but Superman catches the bomb and just throws it back at the airplane, exploding it. No problems with the debris falling on anyone or anything. He returns back to the room where the faux Professor Martin is missing, where Luthor shows up on the screen. This is Luthor still with red hair, not bald yet. Will that ever be explained? Yes, but we don't see it, and that's not really the original reason he's bald. He just kind of becomes bald, and then we get a reason for him being bald, which is wonderful when we get to that. Superman quickly finds out that Luthor's men are stealing the device to cause earthquakes from the United States military. Wait, how did Luthor cause the earthquakes to begin with? Was it the military? I'm actually kind of confused about this, thinking about it. So did the government do this? Crap, maybe Superman should be going after the military. For this and many other reasons. Superman arrives and easily fights off the 2 men trying to steal the earthquake device, who run away. Luthor's face then appears into a tree, which is something he seems to be able to do. He had his face appear into a mountain last issue. When you're good at something, why stop? He challenges Superman to some sort of competition of feats, and if Superman wins, he gets Professor Martinson back. Superman agrees to this challenge, and instead of just taking Luthor out when he arrives with Professor Martinson, he goes along with these feats. These feats involve a test of speed where he races one of Luthor's aircrafts. He wins. A test of his leaping ability, specifically if he can leap higher than an airplane can climb. He wins that one too, going into the stratosphere. A test of strength where Luthor creates some sort of electrical magnetic field where he lifts a boulder, and then Superman lifts that boulder fairly easily, and then he picks up an airplane at the same time. And number 4, which is a invulnerability test where Luthor just throws a grenade at him without warning, which has no effect. Luthor is surprised by all this, but what I actually kind of enjoy about this, in like TV shows or movies, whenever they're kind of like setting up Luthor, building to him, he has like henchmen commit crimes to see Superman's limits, like he's testing Superman, like how fast he can do, what weapons work on him, what he can get away with, and that's what he feels like he's doing. Luthor in the next stories never seems to actually have learned anything, but I feel like he's studying Superman here. With Superman winning all those, he gets Martinson back, but Luthor is gone. It all turns out to be a trick by Luthor, by the way. He was having his henchmen steal the earthquake device while this was all happening. So Luthor accomplished a trick and to test Superman's powers. Already doing so much better than the Ultra Humanite. But Professor Martinson's pretty sure that Luthor's hideout was in Satan's Canyon. Who named these things in Metropolis? Satan's Canyon is right outside of Metropolis. Superman rushes over there. I have a lot of questions about where Metropolis is supposed to be. Mainly about why Metropolis seems to be kind of like a desert, mountainous, rocky area when it's usually like an East Coast city. Like just outside of it sort of looks like California or New Mexico. It's very strange. And this is where Luthor really shines against the Ultra Humanite. As we know, the henchman would always lead Superman back to the Ultra Humanite, who would have maybe one thing ready. Luthor is prepared for Superman. First, he has a bunch of boulders fall on him. Superman punches his way through that. Then some dogs. Superman punches his way through that one too. Less fun. And a knockout gas, which does work on Superman. Wait, I thought gases don't work on Superman. Consistency, people. I need to know what works on him and what doesn't. Luthor's henchmen carry the unconscious Superman over to Luthor's tower where he has the earthquake machine. And when they set him down, Luthor shoots the earthquake machine right into Superman, sending him barreling through the ground as rocks just collapse on him, burying him alive. Like already, just great amount of challenges for Superman here. It's legitimately kind of hard for him to defeat Luthor. Or he has to actually defeat things to defeat Luthor, unlike the Ultra Humanite trying one thing, Superman easily breaking out of it, and then the Ultra Humanite being like, bye. And then we get to what ends up being kind of the weakest problem of this comic. Superman pops right out of the ground and starts breaking the tower and the machine, but Luthor's gone. I don't know if Luthor fled before that, assuming Superman was going to get up, or as soon as he knew Superman was coming up, he just fled. So in a weird way, even though Superman destroys Luthor's hideout and the machine, it never feels like he actually defeated Luthor, because Luthor just kind of made his point and left. It honestly feels like Luthor did all this to prove he could do something to Superman. Make God bleed, as it were. But yeah, Luthor showing up just makes these stories better. He is so much more entertaining than the Ultra Humanite, and he has so many better ideas. So that is it for Superman vs. Luthor. Welcome back to Superman Comic a Day, as we are continuing this week with Superman number 4, the second story, Luthor's Undersea City. So this comic is actually half Luthor, which is great, so it's half interesting. And after our last Luthor story, which was big and fantastical, we get an even bigger in the way of fantastical elements in this story. It's basically, if you've ever wondered the question, how would Superman react to Jurassic Park? Well, you get it here. So Superman is just kind of out jogging. He's in the middle of a field when a yellow rocket just zooms past him. Superman goes flying after it, and on the rocket, Luthor's face appears, because this is the thing Luthor does until this issue. He's done it 3 stories in a row. I do not think he does it anymore after this, but this was kind of his thing. He warns Superman that he's up to something and that massive cataclysmic events are happening across the continent. In Oklahoma, oil fields are erupting and being destroyed, so Superman has to rush and do that. On the East Coast, waters are rising, so he has to fix that and save people. That is wonderful. It's just opening with him having to save people from impossible situations that you don't think he would be able to handle, but he can because he's Superman. It's about saving people. Eventually, as Clark is going to report and look into this, Lois joins him. Once they get towards the East Coast, They get kidnapped by two guys. Clark uses his weird Vulcan Nick Pinch ability to knock Lois out, which is now what this ability is. It's just an excuse for him to easily knock out Lois so he can do Superman things. Which is awful, but oddly convenient. Why is even Lois here if she's going to be a problem with him becoming Superman? Well, she has to be in danger later, but I feel like we could have just figured out a way to get her in the damsel in distress storyline without having to have her be in a nuisance to Superman in this part. Anyway, they're brought to an island that has appeared on the coast. It is covered in glass, like a glass bubble, but not really a bubble. It's more of like an outline of the entire city. Luthor found this ancient city and managed to rise it up, and it's the rising that caused the cataclysmic events across the United States. This ancient city, we don't really know who ran it, or why, or anything about it, other than there are prehistoric dinosaurs on it. At one point, Superman gets attacked by a pterodactyl. It's never actually named a pterodactyl, and it doesn't 100% look like a pterodactyl, but it does look kind of birdish. So, applauding there, they got that right. Luthor takes hold of Superman and Lois. He claims Lois is going to be safe and has his men taken away, and he tries to have a conversation with Superman where he's going to essentially try to convince Superman that it would be a moral quandary about letting Luthor keep this city, because he can't just, kill all these dinosaurs. Though the conversation is not going well for Luthor, because Superman takes it as, an act against nature. So he's immediately no, this all has to go. So that is the answer to the question, how Superman would react to Jurassic Park. He would be on Malcolm's side and immediately just start effing that place up. No one would have to die, because he's Superman. Those velociraptors aren't getting Muldoon, no matter how clever they are. Any sort of, convincing Luthor tries is completely thrown out the window. As soon as his henchmen try to throw Lois into a vat of acid, don't know what his plan was here, he just kind of threw it out the window. Superman saves her and knocks somebody else in a vat of acid. So Superman killed a guy. Here's the weird part. Roughly around this time, Mort Weisinger and several of the executives are going to be kind of involved more in Superman. Because the Executives National had been publishing tawdry detective kind of noir stories that were full of not exactly sex, but sexiness or lewd behavior for the time, they didn't want to get into trouble later on. So to sort of protect Superman, who was becoming a massive hit, they kind of decided that Superman shouldn't kill at all. So they didn't get in trouble later on. I feel like that should be happening by now, but Superman is still inadvertently killing people. Luthor then releases on Superman a 7 to 8 foot tall T-Rex. I don't know what he thought this T-Rex was going to be able to do to Superman. It's not even like a full-grown T-Rex. It's barely taller than him. So I can't even say we get the cool moment where Superman fights a T-Rex. This is like a dude in a costume almost. Superman, beats the T-Rex pretty easily. It's very small. I don't know what he thought this challenge would be. And the United States military starts bombing the island because it's yeah, this shouldn't be here, and it caused mass destruction across the United States. So we're just going to bomb the hell out of it. So as that bombing's starting, Superman just grabs Lois and starts taking her back to shore. As he's leaving, Luthor gets surrounded by the dinosaurs and is seemingly viciously mauled to death by them. Though the DC Wikia doesn't say it's an apparent death like it usually does, but this seems like an apparent death. He's being mauled to death on an island that's exploding. This is oddly similar to what happens to John Hammond in the book Jurassic Park. Very specific type of dinosaur, not like a variety of dinosaurs like Luthor. But Luthor will survive and be back. I mean, you know this from the, 80 years of Superman at this point. And they return back to the coast and everything's fine. All good. As I've said, I enjoy Superman stories that are, about him saving people, which the first, third of the story was. And I love, the fantastical challenges, which we got here, but a lot of it seemed rushed. We only get, 3 or 4 dinosaurs throughout. Superman is just knocking out Lois so he can do things. So, also not great. But it's still kind of leaps and bounds above most of the other Superman stories at the time. So I'm going to call this a win, maybe? Welcome back to Superman Comic a Day as we continue our way through Superman number 4, this time the third story, The Economic Enemy. This video shouldn't take all that long because it's not a very good story where much happens. It's literally just kind of the same things happening over and over again and Superman stopping it until we get to a climax. Real stream of consciousness kind of story. And it's a mob story, so I wasn't particularly into it. So let's get through this together. I'm sure maybe we'll find something fun in it. It starts with Clark Kent going to interview Paul Dorgan. Paul Dorgan is said to have written a new book that is going to be a tell-all about someone who is trying to destroy the US economy. He will not tell Clark because it's in the book. As Clark leaves the room, he hears a gunshot and runs back in. Dorgan has apparently committed suicide. This is like the 4th comic that supposedly has opened with some sort of suicide attempt. I mean, this one's been successful, but still, that is just like a shocking way to continually open Superman stories. You know, Superman, the guy in the bright blue costume, red cape, hopeful, saving people. But no, it's been very suicide-centric. Clark finds a note near his body where he's about to reveal who is behind all of this, but it ends right before that. So it's looking like this wasn't a suicide. It was made to look like a suicide. Still, the idea of suicide's brought up. Then trains, bridges, and cars are being sabotaged across the country by mobsters, racketeers. Like, once again, mobster story. They can't really do much to Superman, but at least here, they are causing problems that Superman has to rush to fix. So he goes from one problem to another problem, you know, arguably saving people, though some of these guys die in the process, so I'm not happy to begin with. Each mobster he attacks, he tries to get information about who's doing this. Most of them won't talk to him, and eventually he gets one that does talk. He reveals he's working for a man named J.F. Curtis, who is a former foreign ambassador for the United States. So Superman rushes off to go talk to J.F. Curtis. J.F. Curtis is working for some unnamed European power or other nation. It actually doesn't say European, but we're to assume it's probably a European nation because this comic is about World War II worries. And though we are not in World War II, we are probably worried about the Nazi menace. So, not Germany is probably paying off to ruin our economy. J.F. Curtis actually has a plan for Superman. He uses this machine that gives him like electrical powers. So he has this electrical touch that can kill people. So he uses it to touch Superman. It does nothing to Superman. In fact, it transfers the electrical charge into Superman, who then touches Curtis back, killing him. So yeah, Superman just straight up kills J.F. Curtis with his own weapon at the end. And this is not like accidental. He does this on purpose. This is the most purposeful death he's done. So the pros of the story is it is about Superman having to use his powers pretty extensively to stop a bunch of things that's going to kill a lot of people. So he's saving people. That's what I want in a Superman story. But he's pretty murdery. And it's not very interesting. It's the same thing over and over again. It doesn't seem like a challenge after like the first or second time he stops a mobster. Mobsters are just not interesting. He's a big fantastical character. I've said this many times, but he should be dealing with big fantastical challenges that really test him. And honestly, I have nothing else to say about this story. I will probably forget about it in a day or so. In fact, most of these comics I have read before and fairly recently, but not the day of when I'm recording these. And when I went through this comic to get images for it, I had no memory of what was happening in this comic. Usually when I'm going through the comic and I remember what the comic is, or I just know what's happening right away, but I did not remember this story. So yeah, that's bad. I'd be surprised if this is anyone's favorite Golden Age Superman story. Welcome back to Superman Comic A Day. As we finish this week's Superman number 4 covering with the final story, Terror in the Truckers Union. So the Truckers Union is being terrorized by a racketeering mobster outfit led by a man named Gus Snide, who sounds like a dude who should be in a silent film twirling a really ridiculous mustache. And honestly, that probably would have been a way more interesting character than what we have here. Snide's men kidnap the head of the union, Carlson's daughter, to get him to negotiate, or do what they want him to do, not really negotiate. And Superman arrives to help. You know, Superman, bright blue costume, red cape, Superman. And this is where the comic starts going off the rails. I know, it's pretty quickly this time. So he does kind of save the daughter, but he goes in to negotiate with the head of the racketeers, Snide, and instead of, you know, doing what he usually does, start beating up on these guys and threatening them until they either turn themselves in or leave town, the two ways he deals with things, he instead decides he wants to collect evidence. Oh no. As we know, when he decides he wants to expand the story, make it longer by wanting to collect evidence instead of doing what he usually does, things go wrong. Very, very wrong. So, Superman says he wants to join the Racketeers, and they just believe him, even though he's been kind of stopping them up until this point. So to prove himself, he has to kill Carlson in front of Snide. So he goes and grabs Carlson. He does not explain what's happening here. He just grabs Carlson, brings him in front of Snide, where Snide hands him a gun. Superman just throws away the gun, and he picks up and throws Carlson out a window, which is enough evidence, I guess, for Snide to believe that Superman is on their side. And once he's given the okay, Superman jumps out the window and saves Carlson. So no one, A, looked out the window to make sure Carlson was really dead, and B, they were apparently in a very tall building for Superman to be able to have a conversation with Snide and then jump right back out the window to save Carlson. Carlson is clearly unhappy. He even tries to fight Superman for a second, who then tries to kind of explain what's happening. So Superman joins the Racketeers, helping them do a bunch of stuff. Eventually there is a union strike because of what they do. Superman seems to be so good at, being a criminal because he's superpowered and can't be stopped. The Racketeers decide that Superman should be in charge, which is a fair thing to be, but why the hell is Superman running Racketeers at this point? All of this is just a bad idea. I don't know why he's doing this, other than to expand the story. This could have been over a while ago. Snide gets jealous about being replaced. He picks up evidence and turns it over to the police, sending all the Racketeers to jail. And what should send Superman to jail, but Superman's like, haha, bye. And if Snide had this evidence to begin with, Superman could have just followed him using his X-ray vision, being able to stay away with his leaping to just find it, or, threaten Snide until he gave him the evidence, which is not a great way for a Superman story to end either, but that's how the Golden Age Superman's been dealing with all of this. Superman then escapes the police, goes after Snide, captures him, and takes the evidence that Snide was in charge to the police, sending Snide away. The police just up and forgive Superman, even though he has been doing criminal things. His hands aren't clean here. He didn't get, permission or something. He's not like an undercover cop. He did bad things. And also, the cops don't really like him to begin with. Sometimes they're just after him because he's breaking the law by being a vigilante. But everything's fine now. I really don't want more stories like this ever. Especially just, A, I don't like the mobster stories, but why does he need to run the mob? I mean, there's probably a really fun 50s story with him running the mob in a crazy way, but yeah, this story just kind of doesn't fit with even the Golden Age Superman we've met so far. And that is finally it for Superman number 4. We have gotten through it. It had its high points with the first 2 stories involving Luthor, and then it kind of fell apart with the mob stories for the second half. But I guess that's better than the last issue of Superman, though this was all completely new stories. So it was a lot to get through. Next week we should be covering an action comic, and this will be a little more on the rails, but we will be getting to other Superman comics fairly quickly because they are coming out at least 4 times a year until they start coming out nearly monthly, every 3 months to 2 months. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notifications when a new video goes up. I do this Monday through Friday, but Fridays is now Bat Friday, where I cover a Batman or Detective Comics issue. And until next time, let us ponder the question, whatever did happen to the Man of Tomorrow? Bye!